Everyone, welcome. You are watching In Your Interest here on News 9 Live. I am Krishna Kumar, and the first big story that we're taking up are the brand new set of industrial smart cities. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 28th of August, gave the green light for the development of 12 new industrial smart cities across 10 states with an investment of over 28,600 crore rupees. So what does this mean for you and the country? Well, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw laid out clearly that these cities will be spread along 6 key industrial corridors, including the Amritsar-Kolkata, Delhi-Mumbai, Vizag-Chennai, Hyderabad-Bengaluru, Hyderabad-Nagpur and Chennai-Bengaluru corridors. Now, these aren't just random locations. They are part of a strategic plan to create a necklace of industrial hubs that wrap around the country, all connected by the Golden Quadrilateral. But what's really exciting here is the job potential. Union Minister Piyush Goyal announced that these smart cities could create up to 1 million direct jobs and an additional 3 million indirect jobs.
इस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आज बहुत बड़े फैसले हुए हैं। 12 नए इंडस्ट्रियल एरियाज, 12 न्यू इंडस्ट्रियल एरियाज ऑन द इंडस्ट्रियल कॉरिडोर्स। ये 12 नए इंडस्ट्रियल एरियाज कंबाइंड, इनमें इन्वेस्टमेंट सरकार की तरफ से आएगा 28,602 करोड़ का, 28,602 करोड़ का। और वंस दीज कॉरिडोर्स एंड नोड्स आर डेवलप्ड, उसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट पोटेंशियल है 1.5 लाख करोड़, 1,52,757 करोड़, और करीब करीब 10 लाख एम्प्लॉयमेंट का इसमें पोटेंशियल है।
सैटेलाइट के माध्यम से बनाया हुआ टेक्नोलॉजी है, उससे इन सब प्रोजेक्ट्स की स्टडी करी गई है, मैपिंग करी गई है। थोड़ा आगे 1-2 मैं एग्जांपल्स भी दूंगा। और प्लग एंड प्ले इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, इसको दिमाग में रखते हुए कि लोग अपने घर से काम तक चल के या साइकिल पे भी जा सके, एनवायरमेंटल इकोसिस्टम्स क्रिएट करना, सस्टेनेबल सिटीज़ बनाना और रीजनल डेवलपमेंट को बैलेंस रखना, ये सब हमारे लक्ष्य रहे हैं। और इसी से हम समझते हैं कि ग्लोबल वैल्यू चेन्स में भारत का योगदान बढ़ेगा और भारत में निवेशकों को ज़मीन सरलता से, आसानी से और तुरंत मिलना शुरू हो जाएगा।
Now joining us live on the show is Dikshu C. Kukreja, Managing Principal Architect of CP Kukreja Architects. Dikshu, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on In Your Interest. I'm going to ask a very simple question to begin with, and that is, what are your hopes and aspirations from the new industrial smart city projects, considering what we've seen with how the basic smart city projects have gone so far?
Well, I think, Krishna, it's an excellent initiative. I must compliment the government for it, because when we talk about becoming Viksit Bharat, this is one of the cornerstones. Industry, trade, investment, this is how countries progress. And therefore, to have a holistic vision of creating industrial cities where you have these plug-and-play facilities for manufacturing, but you go beyond that and create a holistic living experience by having residential, commercial, healthcare, education, all these aspects coming together, I think it's a very positive move. I would also say that it's important that this kind of development happens, has the right social impact. We are not looking at displacement of villages, displacement of the rural folk when these industrial cities come up. We certainly must be taking care of the environment. It's about not destroying the environment to create these kind of cities, which some of the eastern neighbors of ours, such as China, have done. I would say that this kind of a planning of developing areas, zones, districts, or cities in this case, for geared towards industry is welcome, but it must come with a lot of environmental responsibility. I've heard the minister mention developing these as sustainable cities, which I think is the order of the day. And what you're talking about, smart cities, I think the two are very, very different. The smart city mission, which has so far been in India, has been more brownfield projects. It has been more geared towards cities which are already existing and how they've been kind of smartified, so to say. This is more, I would say, greenfield development. So from that perspective, it puts the two in very different baskets. So welcome move, but requires a lot of responsibility as we go ahead planning these.
Right. Fair enough. They don't. They're two different things. The fact of the matter is that it's a one is making the existing cities smarter, and the other is, of course, creating newer cities, and that is where the industrial smart city project comes in. What do you think will be key? What do you think are the learnings from the smart city mission that can be used in the development of industrial smart cities?
Excellent question, Krishna. There is, I hope, a lot of learning from whatever the Smart City mission has achieved so far, or perhaps even not achieved. And I think that's about, there is only that much bent, I believe, that should be towards technology. And look, I'm not from the old school of thought, but I definitely believe balance is always the right approach. So Smart City mission in India has been focused towards technology upgradation in cities, which I don't deny is important, but there are other aspects which we can't forget. And those are environmental aspects, like I said, social aspects, like also about urban-rural divide. How do these, especially new field industrial cities, which are going to be smart cities, how do they embrace areas, towns, smaller villages around them, rather than sort of, turning their back towards them? And also, very importantly, are we reflecting the cultural diversity when we develop these industrial cities? We have a great example which was created almost a century ago, which is Jamshedpur. Jamshedpur in India has been a very successful, I would say in many ways, industrial city, which came up so many decades back. So I think now going forward in the 21st century, when we are creating this kind of infrastructure, it's important that it's a more holistic approach. Yes, there are learnings from the smart city, whether it has to do with drainage, water supply, electrical systems, road network, connectivity, etc. Those can be the learnings. But what I also think are learnings of what I've not seen happen in the smart city mission is the embrace towards celebrating the cultural diversity. Remember these 12 industrial cities that are coming, they're kind of forming the golden necklace again. So they are in different parts of the country. So they cannot start having an identical model. So let's see a smart city coming up, an industrial city coming up in Odisha versus Gujarat versus Maharashtra or any other part of the country must be able to reflect the culture, the ethos of that region. That's what India's diversity is all about. And I also believe our planning and architectural approach must always celebrate that diversity.
Right. Celebrating diversity is one thing. And the other is in terms of, sheer delivery, Dikshu, like delivering projects. For example, I understand that 9 years since the Smart Cities mission, over 20% of cities have 25% of the work pending at this stage. One is, the idea, vision, thought, and ambitions, and the other is execution.
So true, so true. You're absolutely right on that. And that's why I believe that, when these kind of projects come about, I think it's important to have realistic timelines to them. I believe, and I could be wrong here, but that this industrial city project is going to come up just in the next 3 years. Now, I think when you're creating cities, it needs time to grow, it needs time to develop. And this is not just a building project we are talking about, we are talking about a whole city. So I think it's very important that adequate time is given to planning. We don't rush into execution. And even when we get into the mode of execution, it must be done responsibly. It must be with proper mechanism of project management, of control on quality, cost, besides time. So unless all these aspects are looked at, developing it fast, sure, why not? But developing it hastily is something we should kind of refrain from. So that's why I think correct planning, adequate planning, responsible planning, so that you are not in a rush overlooking any aspect. Again, I'm going to say whether it's social impact, because, we have to become Viksit Bharat, but as our Prime Minister talks about it, by embracing every element of society. So wherever these cities are going to come up, I'm sure there is some civilization there, whether it is villages or whether it's towns. So how do you imbibe all of that? If we are talking about job opportunities, that means there is also civilization in that area. So you're not only giving local employment, but you're getting migrants to come and live there. How do you create that kind of a society which is a little more homogeneous? How do you make it a more equitable society? How do you do planning which is universally accessible for everybody across every strata. These things can only happen when you carefully plan cities. So I would say, let's give it time, let's give it proper time for planning, and also equally importantly for the execution.
And if I were to ask you one last thing before we let you go, and that is a wish list from, what could these possible industrial smart cities be based on, global success stories?
So I would say that these industrial cities, while the essential sort of DNA of this city is that it is literally a manufacturing base for India. So you're going to have industries which are being given facility of sort of plug and perform or plug and play. But the point here is that we cannot forget that at the end of the day, whether it is the workers who are going to be living in these cities or their families, obviously, that are there, the kind of planning that must be done should be holistic, which means you cannot ignore other elements of a complete livable city, which is proper residential for all strata, for all kinds of people that are going to be there, proper education facilities, healthcare, because otherwise what do you have? You have industrial city, but then you are having people migrate for other facilities which lay stress. For example, tertiary care hospitals. If you're going to have them come to an AIIMS Delhi or an AIIMS Bhubaneswar, then what's the point of doing this? So it has to have holistical planning. And that's where I think one learning in the shortfall, if I may say, of Jamshedpur was that, even after literally a century of Jamshedpur being established, where is the connectivity? Where's the air connectivity with Jamshedpur? Even today, it's hardly existing. Rail and road has also not been that great as it should have been. So I think those aspects will also be very important if we want these cities to be not just industrial cities, but more smart, holistic cities.
Right, smart and holistic cities also means that the investment levels need to be that much higher. You're talking about at this stage 28,600 crore rupees. You're shaking your head. You don't agree with that?
Not at all. Smart thinking doesn't cost.
Okay.
Let's remember that. It's only an attitude. And I must confess that in India, we sometimes overlook this attitude. We do not, I repeat, we do not pay the kind of attention and sensitivity to planning as we should. And the ramifications, we all suffer later for decades and generations. So please, it does not cost that much. It's an attitude thing.
Right. Any particular model example that you can give for the industrial smart cities in India?
Sorry?
If in the development of industrial smart cities, any particular examples, global examples, that stand out in your mind?
So there are plenty. I mean, you have had smart cities or industrial cities, I would say, developed on the periphery of Paris, of London. In Asia, closer, we have seen many develop in China on a very different scale and model. And I'm not definitely suggesting we have to ape that. There are plenty in South Korea, more lately in Vietnam, and even in Malaysia before that. So there are many, many examples of industrial cities or industrial towns which have developed world over. So I think there's a lot of learning that we can take from them, their successes, their failures. And as we go about doing it now, I hope we don't repeat the same mistakes. That's why I'm saying the impetus on planning is very important. And when we bring that in, I think we are then definitely building on to learnings from other places, be it, like I said, cases like Jamshedpur in India or world over, the western or the eastern part of the world. There's plenty of learning from there. We should build on that learning so that we don't repeat those mistakes and really create world-class 21st century cities. I'm very excited with this concept and this policy announcement that the government has come up with. It's a great opportunity for us, not just to expand our manufacturing base or become the manufacturing capital of the world, but also demonstrate to the world how, when we are talking about carbon neutrality by 2070, our own developed nation by 2047, how these are becoming the benchmarks, how these are becoming the stepping stones of our moving towards that.
Dikshu C. Kukreja, Managing Principal Architect of CP Kukreja Architects. Dikshu, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on In Your Interest.